Back from the dead? Tiny Elvis? These are the TV and movie performances of the king nobody could forget. One of the most surreal intersections of politics and pop culture happened on December 21, 1970. Elvis Presley visited President Richard Nixon at the White House in the hopes of becoming deputized as a federal narcotics agent. Presley, though no stranger to illegal substances, was reportedly disturbed by the youth drug culture of the day and wished to lend his support and influence to the war on drugs. A photo was taken of the two men, and Presley was presented with his very own badge. There's no world where this encounter is anything but hilarious. Or at least that's what rock and roll high school director Alan Arkush must have thought when he helmed the 1997 Showtime mockumentary Elvis Meets Nixon. Hosted by Dick Cavett as himself, what's most surprising about the film is how straight it plays the facts of the meeting. Longtime television actor Rick Peters doesn't much look like Elvis, but embodies the king's swagger and charisma better than most, even from underneath yet another terrible wig.
Well, thank you very much.
Apparently, the story of Presley and Nixon's White House meeting was so nice they told it twice. Nearly 20 years later, another version of the story was produced by Amazon Studios in 2016 as Elvis and Nixon, featuring Kevin Spacey as Nixon and Michael Shannon as Presley. Director Lisa Johnson keeps a pace up with a jazzy score and heist movie energy, as Presley guilelessly gets on a plane and arranges a meeting with the White House. Whereas in Arkush's film the meeting is little more than a button at the end of the story, here the meeting takes up the final half hour of the film. Spacey's full body transformation into Nixon clashes with Shannon's minimalistic to the point of non-existent impersonation of Elvis.
I don't even know if I know who he is anymore.
The film's placement on this list is tricky, and not just because of the distaste audiences today might feel towards Spacey. Michael Shannon is arguably the finest actor here, but he is so miscast as Elvis that it feels like an intentional choice. His gaunt face and Midwestern rasp bear no resemblance to Presley. But at the same time, there is something admirable in Shannon's commitment to the character as a man first and an icon second. The 2005 Johnny Cash biopic Walk the Line doesn't feature Elvis as a character very much. Though he and Cash both got their starts at Sun Records in Memphis and toured the Southern Circuit together, their stories diverge at a certain point. Until then, though, Elvis serves as a potent symbol in the James Mangold-directed film. Cash first sees Elvis on the street in Memphis and follows him to the Sun Records studio, until owner Sam Phillips slams the door shut in Cash's face. Later, as Cash's career begins to take off and they're booked together on the same tour, he tries amphetamines for the first time on Elvis's recommendation. And as Johnny cheats on his wife backstage with a local woman, the sound of Presley singing "That's Alright Mama" creeps up in the sound mix, specifically the line, "Son, that gal you're fooling with, she ain't no good for you." Actor and singer-songwriter Tyler Hilton plays Presley and performs his own songs, a rarity for Elvises on film. Vocally, he doesn't sound very much like Presley, but he has a good voice, and his natural confidence and charisma as a musician makes him a fine substitute. It makes sense why the crowds in the film would treat him like he's Elvis, and why Phoenix's Cash would respect and be intimidated by him. Rumors and beliefs that Elvis had faked his death became widespread, either seriously or in jest, almost immediately after his sudden death in 1977 at age 42. But despite this, there are hardly any films or television shows in the Elvis live genre. One of the few is David Winkler's 1998 road trip indie dramedy Finding Graceland. The film stars Jonathan Sheck as Byron, a grieving young widower who gives a ride to an older man who claims to be Elvis, played by Harvey Keitel. He's trying to make his way to Graceland in time to attend a party in honor of his death. Along the way, as often happens in films like this, the two strangers share adventures and life lessons. Keitel seems wildly miscast at first, looking or sounding nothing like Presley. But there's a twinkle in his eye, and a sense of fun in his performance that feels like a piece of Presley's own screen persona. Whether or not he really is Elvis, he's good company. Why would you want to spoil that by knowing one way or another? The most notable Elvis Lives film is the 2002 horror comedy Bubba Ho-Tep, directed by Don Coscarelli. An aged Elvis, played by Bruce Campbell, and John F. Kennedy do battle with a resurrected Egyptian mummy terrorizing the East Texas retirement home where they live. At least one of these men may not be who he says he is, but the film mostly takes Elvis at his word that he is the real deal. Like Rick Peters in Elvis Meets Nixon, Campbell is freed by the film's comedic tone to play Presley as a swaggering cartoon, which in a way feels more realistic than some of the more dramatic, low-key performances on this list.
Just what are you getting at, Elvis?
I think you know what I'm getting at, Mr. President. We're gonna kill us a mummy.
The film itself is undercooked, padded out to hit its already slim running time. It is at times refreshingly forthright about the indignities of old age, but just as often playing old people falling down for laughs. One of the most popular depictions of Elvis in the last 20 years has not been on film but on stage. The mega-popular jukebox musical $1 Million Quartet tells the story of a day in 1956 when Presley, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Carl Perkins all happened to be at Sun Records at the same time. In 2017, writers Colin Escott and Floyd Muttrux adapted and expanded the show into the CMT miniseries Sun Records. Musician and Elvis impersonator Drake Milligan plays Presley as a high schooler swept up into the burgeoning world of rock and roll. Thus far, the series is his only acting credit other than a 2014 short film where he also played Elvis. He's been a contestant on both American Idol and America's Got Talent. And above all, he has the moves, the look, and the sound of Presley down to a science. This series is a handsome gloss on those rough and tumble years, and asks little of Milligan other than to be handsome and glossy in return. In all the decades of actors playing Elvis on screen, it apparently never occurred to anyone to cast an actual rock star in the role until Jack White's one-scene cameo in the vastly underrated 2007 parody Walk Hard, The Dewey Cox Story. John C. Reilly plays the eponymous rock music prodigy, Dewey. White appears in a scene taking place in the 1950s, showing up just long enough to aggressively mumble a karate-based threat to Dewey for the crime of talking to him.
There's two things you need to know. I'm the king. And number two is look out, man!
Perhaps before White, there was never a rock star with the improbable combination of having a passable Elvis impersonation and being a big enough fan to lovingly skewer the king's persona. He's Elvis. He's very small. He spends his days marveling at how much bigger everyone and everything is than he. That's the premise and single joke of Tiny Elvis, a 1992 Saturday Night Live sketch from Nicolas Cage's first and only time as host. Cage has long been an avowed Elvis fan, and many of his early roles, from Rumblefish to Raising Arizona to Wild at Heart, are played at a certain rockabilly pitch. The sketch has two scenes that follow the same pattern. Elvis sits around with Memphis Mafia members Sonny and Red West, delighting in how huge everything is. But when one of them takes it too far and calls him cute due to his size, Elvis flies into a rage.
Well, that's it. Out of the car, all of you.
On one hand, the sketch is little more than a vehicle for Cage's above-average Elvis impersonation and some impressive for live TV blue screen work. But in pairing Tiny E with his entourage members, it lands a satirical shot at the way Elvis was coddled and enabled by those around him. Irish actor Jonathan Rhys-Myers dons the sequins and sideburns in the CBS 2005 miniseries Elvis, which covers the King's early days in Memphis up through his 1968 comeback special. That concert works here as a natural climax that allows Presley to go out on top in a way he didn't in real life, and also spares the whisper-thin Rhys-Myers the indignity of wearing a fat suit. Rhys-Myers makes for an intense, live-wire Presley in his private moments, though a less than convincing singer on stage. The miniseries makes the odd choice to have him lip-sync to the studio recordings of Elvis's songs, even when he's meant to be performing live. The series and Rhys-Myers are refreshingly unafraid to show Presley as unsympathetic and even something of a weirdo. The short-lived HBO rock and roll series Vinyl was perhaps above all a failure of imagination. Set in 1971 New York City, it follows bad boy record executive Richie Finestra as he hustles everyone in his life on behalf of his beloved label, the fictional American Century. Considering that it was executive produced by Mick Jagger and Martin Scorsese, it's all the more disappointing how often the series falls back on tired cliches. One episode, however, breaks the mold. In The King and I, Richie and his second-in-command hear a rumor that Elvis is considering leaving his longtime record label, RCA Victor. They take a plane to Las Vegas to have a meeting with Presley in an effort to get him to sign with American Century. In addition to bearing a striking physical resemblance, professional impersonator Shawn Klush gives a surprisingly tender one-scene performance. He sheds light on the King in an era that is too often played for laughs or drug-fueled drama, trapped in a gilded cage above the Vegas Strip, unable to break free. In 2019, it was announced that Austin Butler, a former Nickelodeon and Disney Channel heartthrob, recently seen getting mauled to death by Brad Pitt's dog in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, was cast as Elvis. Nearly 3 years later, director Baz Luhrmann's dizzying, gaudy biopic of the King premiered to rapturous applause at the 2022 Cannes Film Festival. Butler, more than nearly every other actor on this list, put in the work to become Elvis. He does his own singing, dancing, and guitar playing in the film. In return, Luhrmann's camera worships him from head to toe, especially in the parts of the film detailing Presley's 1950s heyday when he was young, beautiful, and dangerous. The screenplay covers the king's entire life and beyond, perhaps biting off more than it can chew. As good as Butler is, and as much effort as he is clearly giving, Presley's hedonistic final years don't fit him quite as well as the pink-suited mama's boy of his early years. And like many actors before him, playing Elvis seems to have left a mark. It's been months since filming completed, but you can still hear it in his voice.
And it's hard to, in the beginning, to feel anything but small compared to him.
The best Elvis was the first Elvis. In 1979, just 2 years after Presley's death, ABC aired the miniseries Elvis. It covers Presley's early days through his army stint, his movie career, and up through his comeback special and the triumphant early Vegas days. What sets the 1979 miniseries apart from its decades-later counterparts or any of the other films on this list are two things: the patient, painterly filmmaking of John Carpenter, and the megawatt charisma of Kurt Russell in the title role. What's most remarkable about Russell's performance here is the way that he manages to make a full character out of Presley, while also working in all of the famous Elvis impersonation tics. The voice, the pout, the swivel, even his sideburns look good, which would have been enough alone to put him at the top of the rankings.
Man, I've been away too long.
Perhaps he picked up some mojo when he had appeared as a child actor in Presley's It Happened at the World's Fair. 15 years later, Russell would return to the role, providing the voice to Peter Dobson's body in Forrest Gump, and would wink at it in 2001's other Vegas-set heist movie, 3,000 Miles to Graceland.